Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for joining. My name is Miles Rutter. I'm the Director of Client Development here at Ben. Ben Group stands for Brand Entertainment Network. As mentioned, we help brands integrate and we leverage our AI technology to help identify which upcoming shows, whether they be streaming, TV, film, music video, music artists, or even influencers, based on their audiences and people who will be able to help brands reach them through that by being part of the entertainment. And then, of course, I will hand it over to Kamal Bhandal, who is going to give a little background on herself as well.
Hi, everybody. So good to be here today with the Brand Innovators community and Miles with you as well. I am Kamal Bhandal, as Miles shared, and I lead the global consumer and brand marketing team here at Align Technology. I think most people in the audience may know Align better as the makers of Invisalign clear aligners. We are very much a household name with that brand. And I'm super excited to be here today. I think the Brand Innovators community is definitely a community. So I look forward to an engaging discussion with you, Miles.
Likewise, yeah, no, and as we were speaking this morning, just thrilled and thank you to Brand Innovators for hosting once again another fantastic panel with super interesting people. I will say Kamal definitely deserves to be on this panel. I was talking to her and she's on the West Coast and she'd been up since 5:30 her time this morning. So I know that she's really out there doing the work. But yeah, let's get started. I think people watching would probably just love to know, how did you get to where you are today?
Such a big question. So a couple of thoughts, right? I would say, how did I get to where I am today? I very much stand on the shoulders of so many coaches, leaders, and mentors who shaped my career journey. A little bit about my career journey. I actually started in hardware, Miles, and my hardware days were very much focused at Intel. And what a time it was to be at Intel when we were just first introducing products like the Celeron processor. And from there, I went into software and really made the cycles in the software space, both as a product manager and as a product marketing manager. So really got some good experiences there, I would say, just in terms of understanding how to build products, understanding user behavior, customer needs, and putting myself in the shoes of the customer to ensure that we were creating both products and services and experiences really that were going to delight the end user, right? The actual user of the product. And then from there, I did a little twisty turny and decided that I wanted to spend some time understanding consumer and made a switch over to consumer marketing and health tech at the same time. So I joined Johnson & Johnson, which is a fabulous organization, and really was very fortunate to meet so many leaders, so many marketers, so many business leaders who taught me a lot about not only consumer marketing, but about leadership, about general management. And if I go back to your question, how did I get to where I am today? It really has been through all the coaching, the mentoring that came about from so many leaders along the way who have played an instrumental role in my career.
Great. Yeah. I mean, those are amazing companies to have worked at. So you really have understood the full consumer landscape, I feel like. So when it comes to women in marketing, what mentors did you have coming up, and what did that mean to you? And, how has that kind of been helpful, and what could other people do to sort of mirror that?
It's interesting. I think in terms of mentors, the mentors have been a compilation, I would say, of people who were more senior to me in the organizations that I worked in, Miles. And so I remember when I first started at Intel, there were definitely two women on the team who were more senior than I was, who took the time out of their super busy schedules to ensure that I got the right training, I had the right experience, I had an environment that had a lot of psychological safety in. And that was critical, right? Because they wanted to see me thrive. It was important to them. And by fostering an environment for me where that psychological safety was there, which I think is, by the way, super important at any level, but so incredibly important at kind of that entry into corporate America at first, I think they played an instrumental role. And then along the way, what I would say is that I had various mentors, both in terms of people who were my direct managers, but also people outside of my organization. And that's been a critical factor in how I build my personal advisory board now, is really ensuring that there is a mixture of individuals, both within an organization that I work with, but also outside of that organization, people who have had either the direct experiences that I'm looking to have, or people who have had a journey that has been totally different than mine, but one that has been full of decision-making that are similar to the decisions that I'm looking to make in my life as well. And I think that that's incredibly important, that you have mentors both in and outside of the organization. What I will say though, Miles, is one of the aspects that I think is incredibly important for leaders is to ensure that you also embrace reverse mentoring. And this isn't a topic that many people talk about, right? And what I think about in terms of reverse mentoring is really, how do you flip the script on what we all think mentoring may be? So often it's thought of as somebody who's more senior than you are. And what I think about is who are the people who are coming into the organization today? Who are the people who are joining organizations, whether it's the organization I work for or other organizations, and really working with them to better understand what's important to them. How are they making decisions, both about where they want to work, how they're thinking about interacting with brands or products or leaders, whatever it may be. And so one of the aspects of my personal advisory board that I've really layered in over the past few years has been that reverse mentoring, so that I don't lose touch with the next generation.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important. And that's also kind of the core of our job, right? And marketing, to understand what's next. We've all come up during different eras of technology and seen how quickly things change. And I know just from what we do over here, I'm constantly asking the younger people in our office who work on our music team or with the latest streaming shows, what they're watching, who they're listening to, because I don't want to miss out on some great new art. Or I'm also just curious, like what are the cool young kids up to these days? How far off base am I? And I think that's really important. And again, to what you said about mentorship, having lots of different perspectives, especially in this industry where there's so many companies that do so many different things, it's always just helpful to get the full landscape of what's out there. So I think that's great advice.
It certainly has been helpful to me. I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what advice do you have for women who are in leadership positions today? How can they help bring up the next level of women in marketing?
The first thing that always comes to mind for me, Miles, here is getting to know people at a human level. I think it's so easy to clump people into segments or generations or, whatever cluster you want to call it. And what's my advice is always get to know the people inside the organization. Everybody has a story, and that story is very unique. And I think that this point really became highlighted during the pandemic, right? I think every single person on each one of our teams had a different situation, right? And I think that by understanding each person and what is happening in their life, what's important to them at that moment in time, what are the variables that they are juggling, really will help all of us as leaders better understand how to structure our leadership style, right? And I think what the pandemic shed a very keen light on, if it wasn't clear before, is that every single person has a very unique situation. And leading with compassion, which is a word I really like, more so than empathy, leading with compassion and understanding that people are trying to do a lot, right? In addition to really delivering on their goals for all of us, there's a lot that they're juggling in their daily lives, and for every single person that's different, and there's no right or wrong answer in there. It's just all different, and until you get to know each person on the team at an individual level, it's going to be really hard to figure out how to create a structure or a style that works for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side, what advice would you give to women who are just starting their careers? They're just getting out of college, or they just got into marketing. What advice do you have for them?
Oh gosh. Okay. A couple of things that come to mind. I think first and foremost, get comfortable with change. Change is always, always, always going to be there, right? There are no 2 days in anybody's career that are going to be the same. And that's true for any stage of your career, right? That's true for any company, any role, and any stage. And in building on that, the next piece of advice that I would have is take the leaps. Sometimes opportunities will be presented to you that are opportunities that you never forecasted would be a role that, or an organization or a company or a brand that you'd be interested in, right? But take a moment to pause and be curious. Get to know, what would this role give me? Who are the types of people that I would be interacting with, right? And I think that expanding your view from the perspective of just thinking about your career in a linear fashion and embracing the fact that your career is not going to be linear, but really opening your eyes to various roles, different industries, thinking about the people you're going to get exposed to. That's how you should really evaluate whether a role is the right one for you to take as your next step.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so true because, so many people only know what they know, right? They might not know that there's a role in another department that they would be exceptional at. And they just, they had this one idea of what they wanted to do in college, and they apply for that job. And sometimes that's not necessarily the best track to stay on. So I think that's a great point.
That's right. And then the last piece there too is don't wait for a role to be posted before you then start thinking about, should I take this role or should I not take this role, right? I think the key here really is own your own narrative, right? Own your own brand story. Interact with people. Be curious about what others are working on, because so often, by the time the role is posted, it's too late, right? Get to know people. Be curious about how the organization is trying to solve problems. What problems are people trying to solve actually, right? And then I think you can actually be in the consideration set when somebody's thinking about, okay, you know what, we're actually going to be constructing role XYZ, and perhaps this person may be interested. Let's have a conversation with him or her.
Right. Yeah. Closed mouths don't get fed.
That's right.
And I think that's a great point. And also your point about being your own personal brand. You represent your company and who you work for, but you also yourself are a brand. And when you change jobs or careers, it's going to be who you are and the relationships that you've made that follow you.
That's right. And I always think about personal brand, right? Because when you reflect on your career and you reflect on all the moments of any role that you have, you're always thinking about that particular focus area, right? Or that particular role that you're in. And what I think about, now that wasn't so clear to me earlier, and I often coach individuals on this, is own your own story. Because if you don't shape your own story, somebody else is going to write that narrative for you, right? I guarantee it.
Yep, exactly. And we are in the business in marketing of writing our own stories. So
we sure are.
Something you need to know how to do if you want to be in this space. That's great. So another question, because the focus is on women in marketing, is what role do women play at the places you've worked, and how has that changed in your career?
Oh my gosh, I think in so many of the organizations that I've been a part of, women across all levels have been the backbone of at least my experiences, right? In the organizations I've been on. I already touched on two women, Amy and Deanna, who I worked with in my early days at Intel, who really wrapped their arms around me and made sure that I had a safe space to learn and ask questions, be curious, make mistakes, right? I think they played an incredible role in building my confidence early on. I think also, another moment in my career that was pivotal for me was when I came back to work from having my first child, and as many women face, I was facing the juggling act of like, how do I actually figure all this out? How do I figure out coming to work, doing everything I need to do at home, and also still being really great in the role that I'm in, right? And there was my VP at the time. She very early in my coming back to work, she set up a meeting with me, and the whole meeting was about tips and tricks on how to manage your schedule and how to make it all work. And I loved that because I didn't ask for it. But she just knew, and she proactively reached out and said, here are the things that have worked for me. Here are the things that haven't worked for me, with no suggestion or requirement of, hey, you should absolutely try these things, but more of just trying to be helpful. And I think that through my career and here at Align as well, there's so many women who have played an incredible role in helping this organization be where it is, and women in leadership positions, whether it's the chief medical officer or corporate communications, but really women supporting women. And I think that's been the common thread through my career as I've grown up in marketing and various facets of marketing. One of the commonalities has been I've been fortunate enough to work in organizations where women really do support each other. And I think that's key.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just say the women here have always been so supportive. We couldn't do it without them. We have great, female leadership all the way down to just, the people that you work with every day, a lot of whom are mothers, and they manage to just do an amazingly great work every day. And I know some of them are watching. So thank you, ladies. We appreciate it. That actually leads me to my next question, which is, how do you balance it all, being a female leader in the space and also a mother of two? What is your method to getting it all done?
So first and foremost, I don't believe in balance because I don't think there's any such thing, right? And that's been true for me for sure. But what I do believe in, what I've always believed in, has been integration, and that integration of work and life coming together. And what that means is for me early on, I tried to balance it all, right? I tried to balance it all, and I was a mess. It was not working out. But very quickly, I sought some advice from a few other senior leaders who helped me realize that I should embrace asking for help and inviting help in the form of, whether it's friends who are helping in co-sharing responsibilities with the kids, or actually making choices on where it is that I spend my time, right? And one of the things that I learned probably after trying to balance it for a long time was really having an active conversation with my kids about what was important to them. And I'll never forget it with my older daughter. When she was in elementary school, she was very keen on, Mom, you're missing out on all these different events. But when I asked her what it was that was important to her, what she wanted me to do was to take her to school one day a week, right? And I thought to myself, okay, I can do that. I can totally do that. And so I fit it into my schedule. And I think it's really about making those choices and figuring out, how do you integrate work and life together, because it is an ebb and a flow, right? But that doesn't mean that I am at every event. I'm not, right? But those moments that are the ones that are important to my family, those are the moments that I make choices on, and I do make sure that I'm there.
That's great. And I love that, just we as a culture have changed the way people work to allow them to do that so that they can balance, family life and work life, how they prioritize what they prioritize the most.
That's right. The last thing that I'll say on that one too, Miles, is I think one of the most important decisions you make in trying to drive that integration is figuring out who your support network is, right? Whether that's a partner, maybe it's not a partner and you want to do it on your own, but figuring out who that support network is. And my support network definitely includes a myriad of people that are both a combination of family, but also friends who have become family. And without that support network, there's not a whole lot that would have gotten done.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think of all the time I spent at my friend's parents' house and how
That's right.
it always was. Fantastic. So what have some of the challenges been during the different chapters of your life, from before kids and to after to where we are now?
I think one of the challenges early on, I'll say in my before kids chapter was really self-inflicted, right? I very much thought, like many people do, that your career journey is linear. And I very quickly learned that it's not. And I think one of the challenges for me was figuring that out. And one of the pivotal moments for me was when I made the switch from software over to consumer. And during that time, I left a great career in software, was working with some of the smartest individuals, loved my product manager days, but I was craving wanting to understand consumer. And when I got to my first role as consumer, I started over as an associate marketing manager, right? And I think one of the challenges I faced was really that challenge of starting over and being the new kid on the block, but not just being the new kid on the block in any role, but really at the ground level again. And so that was a challenge that, yes, was self-inflicted, but I got over that really fast because I was just surrounded by individuals who were so much smarter than I was. And I was definitely a sponge in learning as much as I could during that time. Another moment was the moment that I described earlier, which is that moment of returning to work. That was probably one of the toughest times in my career, I'll say, because I didn't think that I could do it, right? I didn't think that I could make it all work. But I think ultimately with the guidance of the individuals around me, I was able to pull through. And I think that resilience and embracing the change has definitely been something that's stuck with me and something I try to keep front and center all the time.
That's great. That's great. So you talk about that pivotal moment when you made that decision to switch. How did you know to listen to yourself? We all have different ideas every day of, giving it up and moving to an island in the Caribbean or something like that. How do you know which voices to listen to? How did you know to take that risk?
I really have to attribute that one to one of my coaches and one of my mentors. And she and I had a conversation, and I had lots of conversations with various people at the time. And there was something that she said to me that really stuck with me in the moment. And what she said to me was, she said, Kamal, what's the worst thing that can happen? You go to an organization that's full of wicked smart people in a category and a target audience of consumer that you're super curious and passionate about. And she said, the worst thing that can happen is it sucks, it doesn't work out, and you come back to where you were. And the way that she phrased it with such simplicity, it really just neutralized all of those voices in my head of should I, what if, I'm not sure. And it gave me the courage, I would say, really, and the clarity of making that decision and being confident about it.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's such a good point, and so much stress and self-doubt is self-inflicted. There's
totally
really not that much risk in trying something new. I think that's a great point. Thank God for mentors like that, right?
And also ones that don't let you go back on it, right? Because in that same journey, the other important point was, and this was another mentor of mine, he was the VP that I worked for at the time. I definitely called him early in my journey and I said, oh, I don't know if I like this. And he said, remember, Kamal, we said a year, give it a year, see what you think. And that was, again, my first job in consumer. And boy, am I glad that I stuck with it and I followed their encouragement, because it has really shaped the more recent chapters of my career.
Awesome. When we were speaking this morning, you brought up the fact that lots of women talk about dealing with imposter syndrome. Is that a real thing? And if so, how do we combat it?
Yeah, imposter syndrome, what I'll say is a real thing is that feeling of self-doubt, right? That feeling of self-doubt that trickles in at various points in your career. And whether it's at the start of a new role, whether it's right before a big presentation or something else, I think it's very real. I think it's very real. And I think that it also, it isn't something that is only there in your early career. I think, I have moments today where I have those moments of doubt, or I'm not sure that really creep in. And I think in those moments, what my advice to individuals always is, we've talked a lot about your network and we've talked about mentors and I've talked about reverse mentoring, but the component that I haven't talked about yet is your peer network. And that peer network is something I think should be really strong. A very, very strong peer network will be the sounding board that you need in those moments, because they do happen for sure. And my peer network has definitely gotten a lot of texts from me over the years on the daily, and sometimes the text is enough, but sometimes the text turns into we should have a conversation about this to actually get you out of this moment.
Yeah, I completely agree. I find it absolutely fascinating to see where all the different people that I met when I started my career have all ended up, over the past 10 to 12 years. And it's always, whenever I see an update on LinkedIn or I run into them somewhere, it's great to hear where they are and kind of learn, how they've made that change from where they were to where they are and what they're seeing in the marketplace. I think that's great advice.
One of the other points on that, Miles, on imposter syndrome, some of the advice that I always give individuals is, when they're having that moment is remember that you are awesome, right? Remember that you are awesome. You are in the role that you're in because you're fantastic, right? You're fantastic. And why not you? So that's the advice that I always give.
You call me every morning with that advice? That's great to hear. Awesome. No, I think that's great. I was saying, yeah, I could use hearing that every morning when I wake up.
I'll put you on my text thread. How about that?
Yeah. Well, so what are the areas of focus for you that you're most excited about this year from a marketing standpoint?
I think there's never been a better time to be a marketer, right? I think one of the most thrilling parts of being a marketer is the pace of change at which we all have to operate. And inside of that pace of change is not only technology change, but also, from a consumer standpoint, the media consumption habits and how those change, both by channel and by platform, but also by generations and by time, right? I mean, here we are in I don't even know what to call it. Is it post-pandemic or we're living with COVID now? Whatever we want to call it, but the
post-pandemic sounds nicer, more optimistic.
but the reality is that it really shapes our experiences overnight, right? And it shapes how people are interacting with media. And I think one of the things I'm most excited about is Gen Z and Gen Alpha. I think Gen Z was the first generation to come along to really demand more from brands and from media. Gen Alpha is taking that to the next level. And one of the things I'm super excited about is how these two generations are fundamentally going to change the way in which business and brands operate. I think that it is going to be a big change. I think the way in which we as leaders even lead individuals from Gen Z or Gen Alpha is going to require us to think and pivot in a much faster pace than we ever have had to before. So I'm really hopeful and excited about what this generation is going to drive us to do.
Yeah, they're really interesting, and keeping up with the trends and their passions has been really inspiring to watch. Absolutely. I think I'll do one more question here, and then I'll open the floor up to questions from the audience. But I think a good question to end on is, how can my fellow men be of more help to women in the marketing place?
I love this question. Don't just mentor, sponsor. That's my headline. And what I will build on there is, and what I mean by that is I think sponsorship is so different, right? Mentorship can be very passive sometimes, right? I mean, it definitely requires time, and there's a value in that. But I think, my advice is always, don't just stop there, right? The women inside the organization, they need sponsorship. They need others to elevate their voices, open the doors, provide the access, and really reflect on how and who you might be able to do that for, whether it's inside of your organization or inside of your network.
Great. Well, I'll let all the men know. Do we have any other questions from anyone else in the audience? I see EB's coming back online. So are we out of time?
You have time if you've got one more question. I think you hit a lot of the inquiring minds from the chat comments.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I'm looking to, I don't see any others. So if that's true, then I think that was it for us.
That's because you covered it, Miles. You were awesome. And Kamal, I have to say that you need to be the author of a new book, Chicken Soup for the Brand Soul.
I like it.
Does it exist already? If not, I need you to author it, because everything you said was just so fantastic. I tweeted, I liked, I posted, I shared. Thank you.
Oh, well, fantastic. I'll have to noodle on that suggestion. I like it. How I will fit it all in and make it work. May need your help with that.
I'm a writer. I'm here to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you to the Brand Innovators community. As always, I love this group. Miles, thank you to you as well. And look forward to meeting many of you inside the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you too, Kamal. It's been great.